is Ida. Welcome to my channel, Ida the Intuitive. Happy late September. Happy late September. We're headed into October. We're headed into fall. Fall is here. So a couple of little things I know about fall. Just the way that the trees are kind of dying down, falling, the leaves are falling, you may be experiencing those same kind of feels, right? Emotionally, but also physically. So fall is a good time for not a good time, but a time to look out for ailments. You might see transformation in your body, transformation in your face, in your skin, in just your organism in general, right? Even like your car I just picked up, all kind of things like that you may be finding you're having issues, transformations with, because this is the season of transformation. So, it's a good time for your remedies that you use for health, for not trying to not catch a cold, tea, all those kind of things is good for this period, right? This period of the year. But that's not what I'm here to talk with you about today. I want to talk to you about the spiritual meaning of the Maiden. Because I'm just feeling this whimsical fall energy, this kind of spooky season energy, and I would just want to talk to you about the meaning of the Maiden. So let me just I have some notes. And I have these notes, but it's gonna be a little bit of channeling energy as well. Also, how are you? I know you cannot answer me, but I just feel like I should check in because I don't really edit these videos, or just not at this time. I'm like, let me give a little bit of space for you to get a little cozy while I tell you about the spiritual meaning of the Maiden. And it honestly is a little bit creepy. It does have a creepy energy, and I don't know, creepy in a very whimsical way. Do you want to hear it? Let me give you a little funny story before I tell you about the Maiden today. So I've been kind of dealing with my own spooky season situations, and in order to protect my space that I'm in, I sprayed some pepper spray before I left so that whoever was trying to come in would choke on it. But I was back so quickly that I was the only one who ended up choking on it. And so then I had to run in and fumigate my own, or defumigate my own space from pepper spray, just because I thought that I was prepping for so that's my weird ass. And then so I'm coughing and feeling it in my chest. But what's interesting about pepper spray, I realized, is it clears out your sinuses. It clears out your sinuses, just kind of like hot things do, hot sauce, you clear that phlegm out and stuff. And something intuitively told me, you're gonna feel good though after you breathe a little bit of it in. And I really did. It really cleared up my nasal, everything. So that's what I did today. But now I'm going to tell you about the Maiden. Okay, so if you've ever heard of the kind of the trifecta of Maiden, Mother, Crone. And so it's the cycle of feminine energy, from starting from youth, the innocent, the bud of the flower, to the mother, the blooming of the flower, and then the crone, which is honestly even like the fall of the flower, and not in a negative way, right? Like the fall season represents the fall of the trifecta. You know what I mean? The rise, the prime, and the fall. So the maiden is the bud. And so a maiden, like the definition of a maiden, is a young girl or young woman, especially unmarried, which is interesting. And then this was interesting to me, this definition, an over in which no runs are scored. An over in which no runs are scored. And even though I'm still a little bit confused about that definition, no runs are scored to me says something about no home runs, as in like not living out a full cycle yet. So that's kind of how I saw that. But so the maiden energy represents just like a youthful, still learning energy, still experiencing, still growing, still blooming, you know what I mean? And still experiencing. I believe there's an imagination aspect to it, because it's really the imagination, the naivety mixed with imagination, that can connect you to the spiritual realm, but also just connect, right? Like basically, yeah, connect you to the spiritual realm. Like that is imagination, right? And I think of like, what do youthful people have time to do? Think about things. Kids, right? Their imaginary friends, their the toys that they play with and they bring to life and bring a energy to, or the games kids play, right? And they can be having this whole, like, they know exactly what's going on, they've decided who's who and what's what, and they're in this energy, right? And it's like that's kind of can represent a maiden energy of just youthful, imaginative, and experiencing things for the first time, or experiencing things that you've never experienced before. But the thing about it also is like that movement from maiden to mother requires a blooming, and that blooming isn't an easy process. And so a lot of the stories that come with the maiden are sorry, I just got distracted by something. Sometimes when I get distracted, it's just wise to let the energy come through. Wow. Okay, so wait. I got a download for somebody. This is a little download that's coming through too as well. Like, if you're in this maiden energy, I'm just picking up on having someone who really wants to impose on your shine, on your flow, on the way that you do things, on who you are. And because of that, you may be a bit worried about your blooming process, or like this fear that you won't make it to your bloom because of all the imposing energies that are trying to stop your shine, you know, or stop you from doing something, from being something. I don't know. But I'll say maybe that is also a part of maiden energy. Somebody thinking that you are so naive, so easily caught, so easily destroyed, so easily captured. You know what I mean? Um, when that's really not the case. But that leads me into the story of Persephone. Okay, and so the reality that just came through like that, the reality, the story of Persephone, she is a maiden, she is a young girl, an innocent girl, and she has her innocence essentially taken when she gets dragged down to the underworld by Hades. So she gets dragged down there to the underworld. He brings her there with the intention to connect with her, be with her down there. And while she's down there, her mother and father search for her, right? Zeus is apparently her father. I think that's interesting because Zeus is like kind of can be seen as a narcissist. I don't know, or it can represent kind of narcissistic energy, pride energy to me. But so he puts out a search party for her. The mother is looking, and she's down in the underworld experiencing all of these crazy things, right? And this is like a part of her blooming process. And so her mother and father aren't able to find her. And then she conquers the underworld, basically. So she learns the way of the underworld, conquers it. And after she is able to conquer it, she blooms and then is able to go from the underworld back up to the regular world, and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth whenever she pleases, right? And so I'm feeling like that is kind of an energy of the Empress, of once you have that experience, and that you can have it a couple of times of like experiencing new things also, but I feel like there is kind of like a particular energy of like being a young woman and then growing into a mother, right? Whether it be literally having children or birthing something new, creating a new experience for yourself. And so once she's able to do that, then she can move kind of how she pleases in between those two realms. And so that is the energy and the power of the maiden. And so then there's a definition called the hell maiden. I've heard hell maiden before. And I've heard of sewer maiden before. And so I also think of the maiden kind of as a sensual energy, as opposed to maybe like someone who's been around the block a few times type energy. and someone who's a little bit more in the feeling of it than the actual complete actions of being like actively involved in or worldly, which I used to not really always like that word, but worldly, you know what I mean? And then but kind of like being this sensual energy that's able to really channel so many different things. And like you can be an adult and a mother and still embody this energy though too, right? Like you can embody the maiden energy of kind of like a connected to the spiritual realm in that way. And so what was I going to tell you about Hell Maiden? So I feel like a Hell Maiden is someone who is able to find power in the depths of darkness. It can be someone who can necromance, connect to spirits, someone who, something that I have heard, you know, about spirits is that some of them are souls who did not die in battle. And so being able to connect to these souls that have stories, right? And maybe necessarily not always good stories, but to kind of be able to connect to their power and the things that they've experienced so that you're able to share their story, right? Whether it be like a warning story or a beautiful story. Like it can be so many different things that the spirits can tell us, and that not all spirits have a negative intention either, you know what I mean? And so I think a Hell Maiden can also represent someone who's multifaceted. I think it can be used in a negative way of like, oh, that little sewer maiden. And it's always that sewer maiden, the maiden, you know, the little devil, the Hell Maiden. You know, she's so... Let me think of like examples of maiden. Wednesday Addams, perfect example of a maiden, a Hell Maiden at that, and so comfortable in dark energy, but so skilled. Who's really fucking with Wednesday like that? Like, yeah, she has her battles, but is she not a powerful young beast of the spiritual realm, right? Wednesday Addams. I'm trying to think of some other examples. I feel like a beautiful, if you ever saw American Horror Story, Misty, who was like always in her little like cottage house, kind of doing magic and singing Stevie Nicks songs, you know, that kind of energy is very maideny, connecting to a realm, the unseen in a way, and sometimes in an innocent way. Like I feel like the way the crone connects to the unseen is a little bit more knowing, you know, like a master channeler that's been channeling for so long and has this like connection in a different way, where like the maiden may kind of be like whimsical about it because it's, you ever think of like the beginning to the end, right? So being closer to the beginning of your life, connecting to spirits have a different energy than being wiser and connecting to spirits. So I'm feeling that too. And so the symbolism of the maiden, one is the eternal cycle of existence. So like the reality that this cycle of living, thriving, and passing happens in so many ways at so many times and so many different examples, right? Of just literally the seasons, our lives, the food we eat, our clothes, even of like how long things last, how long you stay in the connection with somebody, how long your school period lasts, right? How long you're there, literally the period, the period, a woman's period, right? And even on how on different days the level is higher and lower, and how it changes your body and your experience even just for that week, and then that whole month after month. So that's the energy of kind of like describing the maiden. You know what I mean? That's one of the symbolisms. So the changing of the seasons, winter to spring. And then also the power of being in a space of still learning. And that's why I say that anybody can embody maiden energy, of being willing to look at something with a fresh pair of eyes. You know, it's like how when you think of crone energy, sometimes crones are so happy to tell you you don't know what you're fucking talking about, right? Because they lived and they know and they tried and true. But even a crone can look at something with a fresh pair of eyes and be willing to see something differently in a new perspective. And that is channeling maiden energy, a free energy, you know? And I'm thinking of that song, Right to Spring by Raven Lene. Give me my right to spring. I don't want to see you, I don't want to be you, I just want to live my life for me. I don't want to see you, I don't want to be you. Something, give me my right to spring. So it's kind of like, give me my right to grow and bloom how I see fit for myself. Persephone didn't really have that option, did she? She was kind of dragged down by this dark masculine energy. But did she make the best of it? Yes. And, you know, did she then have control? And it can also be control of just your own demons. It doesn't even have to be another person, but the own demons that lurk within your experience, in your childhood, your past lives. It's deep, but it's a beautiful place to be in. It's a beautiful place, right? Everybody loves like when spring comes and the cold weather starts to get a little bit warmer and the flowers start to bloom, right? And the air gets a little bit more just warmer. You don't have to deal with rain, nothing's icky, or like, you know, it's just nice, fresh air. Like, it's kind of like the being in the maiden energy is beautiful. It's beautiful, right? And it does pass, but you can find it again. It's cyclical. It's very cyclical. And so, you know, the maiden is also an archetype. And an archetype, which I love talking about on this channel, is just an energy that you can embody, right? And so I have to shout out somebody. Did I write her last name? What is her last name? I'm literally blanking on her last name. I don't really want to mention it if I don't have her last name. Ooh, side note, you know, another good example of the maiden, if you've ever seen Phantom of the Opera, the young woman who's connected to the man in the mask and the whole, the Phantom of the Opera is here, right? And all that fucking drama, the drama of that show. But she's a maiden, right? And so she has this connection to this like half man, half spirit energy. Like, that's kind of like the story, right? Of like this romantic, strange connection to this man that you can't fully, honey. So another, and then one more last little note, and then I'll close out. But when I said multifaceted, I feel like there's also this balance of fearsome and imposing while also being compassionate and merciful. And so the balance in between that, right? And I feel like children are like that. Sometimes you can be really creeped out by kids, right? It's just like because sometimes they don't even realize the power that they hold because it's innate to them. So you're just like, like they don't realize that they just did something kind of creepy, or that the way they kind of lingered in the hallway was weird, or the things that they said, or like, you know what I mean? And it can be so innocent, but then it can be so powerful at the same time. But then there's also that movie, what is it called? Wendell and something, Wild and Wendell. It's on Netflix. Did I write it down? Wendell and Wendell. No, it's not. I don't think it's Wendell and Wendell. Something in Wendell, and it's about that young girl who can channel the spirits, and her parents passed away, and da 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 da, right? And so it does kind of come from these intense experiences that everybody has to, kind of navigate through in their life in some way. And how they deal with that, and the connections that you're able to make after you experience something in the underworld, an underworld experience, a Scorpio experience, I would call it. Yeah. All right, let me see if there's anything else I want to add. Okay, so I'll just say her first name. There's a woman named Aisha, and you might know her because she has since passed away, so rest in peace. But she was a communicator on the Grapevine on YouTube. If you've ever seen that, they just kind of have conversations, political conversations, like racial conversations about blackness and other things, right? And so she used to talk on there, but she also would talk a lot about archetypes and did like a whole teaching about it. And I was just so inspired by watching her do that, because she was helping women find the archetype that represents who they are. Because when you understand your archetype, it helps you kind of realize your power, right? The power, a common archetype for you and your personality, right? So like, what kind of archetype do you carry naturally compared to the one that you could just kind of hop into whenever when you need to or whatever, right? And so some people just have that maiden energy regardless of how old they get. They just kind of have that whimsical way about them. And she said, Audrey Hepburn is a good example of a maiden. I feel like even like, I'm trying to think of more, because there's just so many more. I want to get more examples of just like different women that I can think of. But I'm still thinking Coraline, right? That movie Coraline. Even Cinderella, and how she has to connect to the fairy godmother to help her get through that transformation. Many of the Disney princesses are like, they're like all basically maidens, right? And they all go through something crazy before they have their happily ever after. So it's like, that's that energy, you know what I mean? Yeah, but so she would talk about these things, and I'm just very, very grateful that she did those, because it just really inspired me. And so I'm thankful to her, and rest in peace to her. But yes. Yes. So that is the meaning and an explanation of the Maiden for the beginning of fall spooky season and all of that. So I hope you learned something, felt something, related to something, and got some information that you needed from this video. And until next time, bye.